And first, I'll just direct your attention really quickly to the Padlet. Alex has dropped in a link to the Padlet with a few prompts for you to respond to. So feel free to mosey on over there and post a response to those prompts. But welcome back to day 3 of Zero Barriers Mid-Year PD. As you know, I'm Sherelle Williams, Program Manager at the Smithsonian Science Education Center, and tonight's focus is going to be on practical application of universal design for learning. So we're going to be digging into UDL. You can go to the next slide. And I'm really excited to have that conversation with you tonight. As always, we're just asking folks to just use the features available to you. If you'd like to see subtitles at the bottom of your screen, or if you'd like to view full transcript, you're able to do that. We also have ASL interpretation tonight. So if you're in need of that, you can private chat Alex Grace, and she can assist you private chat Addie tonight, Addie Allred, and she can assist you with getting into the appropriate breakout room. Next slide. Just another reminder to please turn your audio off and keep your video turned off in the main room. But please take full advantage of the chat. I see some folks already saying hello. And again, please do that. If you have questions or comments throughout tonight, feel free to use the chat to pose those thoughts. Next slide. We'll also be recording, so just again, remember to just share things that you feel comfortable sharing and having recorded when you're in the main session. Next slide. So tonight, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking all about universal design for learning. So we'll be reviewing accessibility, inclusion, UDL, and practical applications of the UDL framework in STEM classrooms through a variety of ways and formats and breakout sessions. After our first presentation, that's really all going to be about definitions and just really understanding what UDL is. Next slide. And so to do that, as I mentioned, we'll start with definitions. We'll be, going over accessibility and inclusion just to make sure that we have a clear understanding and have a shared meaning and shared definitions of each term and the importance of using UDL in STEM classrooms. And then we'll move into our breakout rooms that are structured similarly to yesterday, where we have a variety of options for you to choose from, and you'll have 15 minutes in a breakout room of your choice to talk more about ways that educators are using UDL and ways that we can enhance learning using UDL principles. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to our presenters to get us started with the first portion of our session tonight.
Hi, I'm Dr. Allison Dosick, and I currently am teaching at SUNY Oneonta in rural upstate New York. And I worked at Smithsonian on the pilot program for the program you're doing right now. And I did my dissertation using some of their data from the pilot group. So I'm really well familiarized with UDL and how to make STEM more accessible. And I'm happy to be here to share with you tonight.
And I'm Debbie Taub, and I am with OTL Education Solutions. And I've been working with Smithsonian on Zero Barriers for a couple of years now. It's been fabulous. I have created some really cool things with CAST, which is one of the premier UDL organizations, and learned tons and tons from people there, as well as in the classroom with teachers, with educators of all kinds. Sorry, next slide, please. So of course, now is when my husky has decided it's very important to talk, and I apologize.
We're going to go ahead and go over some definitions, and Deb's going to jump in any time.
So what we're going to do right now is use what you guys had in the Padlet and use some of the information that's already out there about UDL, because you guys have a pretty good grasp already of UDL. I know some of you guys have already written in here what it is, what it looks like, and barriers, pieces like that. One of the things we want to talk about today is UDL and inclusive practices. So can you click for the first picture, please? Thank you. So what you see on this right now is 3 line drawings. At the top is a line drawing of a chef at a counter, and there's 3 kids sitting on stools that are all the same size, and one kid's kind of short, and one kid can see absolutely, and one kid can barely see. In the next slide, in the next picture, it's the same chef, it's the same counter, but now they have varying sized stools so that they can sit all at the same level. And in the third one, you see the chef at a table, the adult chef at the table, and this time one of the kids is wearing the chef hat, and 2 of the kids are at one little table, and one kid is at a much shorter table. And I would like you to look at this and think about what you wrote in the Padlet and what others wrote. And let's have a conversation about who's still not included and engaged. Let's start with that question. When you look at these pictures, what do you see or not see? And you can post in the chat, or you can unmute your mic. Maybe I should start with this question. Does it seem in this bottom picture where there's different tables and different heights, and some are standing and some are sitting, does that seem like UDL? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
If I may, Deb,
Yeah.
I would say to a degree, like I think there's an effort here to ensure that everyone has access to the learning opportunity, but I'm going to assume it's the youngest person in this set of students. They don't really have an accessible way to, like in the first image, touch the bowl or really see, like the table is kind of blocking their view. In the second picture, they're all the way to the left, so they don't necessarily see what's going on or can't like reach. And in the last picture in the set, they really can't get to the table to participate. So I think there's an attempt here, but it's not necessarily a great one.
Those are great points. Malcolm writes that this seems like movement toward UDL in many respects. Building on what Sherelle was saying, I want to point out that when I first saw this, so I'm a special education teacher. That's my first love. That's what I started in education doing. When I first saw this, my immediate thought was that this child who was shorter and at their own table, my immediate thought was, oh, once again, they put the kid with disabilities off on their own. Because I just assumed the kid had a disability and that's why they weren't the same height as everybody else. I didn't think younger or older. So one of the things we have to think about when we're looking at our classrooms, when we look at our practices, what assumptions are we making? What do we already know? Because it's a very different conversation if that is a student with a disability and they were placed there versus that's a student with a disability and they chose to go there versus that's a student who just wanted to work by themselves today. April writes that the bottom picture includes active participation of all. That is a great point and a wonderful focus for universal design for learning. And Allison also mentioned that the chef hat moves to the student, so you see more ownership there. So as you think about that, what are barriers you still see in this picture? And somebody just said some, right? You've got some, not everybody can get to the table. Not everybody can see what everybody else is doing. Depending on how you interpret these people, some of them may have disabilities, some may not. We don't know enough about the people in this picture to be able to say if this is fully inclusive or not, right? So we're going to shift to the next slide. So you can just skip the next picture and we'll go to the next slide. Yeah, and then the next slide. Thank you. So, whoops, back one. I jumped you too far, sorry. So universal design for learning, as you guys know, it's about multiple ways to present information, multiple ways to engage with information, and multiple ways to express or act with information. And for those of you who've been working with universal design for a while, you know that they shifted the order of these guidelines, right? It used to be that engagement was the very last guideline. And yet we know from brain research, from educational research, that if you're not engaged, everything else is kind of meaningless. So they moved engagement to the front because that's a basic component of accessibility. So part of accessibility is giving equitable entry to everyone along the continuum of human ability and experience. So now you can go to the next slide. And when we look at it, accessibility is really about that physical piece, right? It's possible for students to get to class, they can move through class, they can access resources. All of that is that physical accessibility piece. Inclusion, on the other hand, which Allison's going to dive into even more, inclusion is considering the humanity of our students and the equity issue around being in that space, how they feel about what they're taught, how they feel about what is happening, the relationships that happen in the classroom. There's a cartoon on this page, and it's a picture of a bunch of kids in rows in desk rows at school. And then in the back of the room, there's a little island with a palm tree and one student in a wheelchair. And across the table from him is one adult. And the caption is "Island in the Mainstream. Mrs. Jones and Mrs. Cooper are still trying to figure out why Fred doesn't feel like part of the class." And that to me really sums up the difference between inclusion and accessibility. So taking that idea, Allison is going to run with it and move us on to the next slide. Allison, you're muted.
May I mention something regarding the picture also?
Absolutely.
So I noticed that the picture has a student with a wheelchair, but then we also need to a lot of the, I guess as the gen ed population teachers, there are disabilities that are not visible, such as a learning disability, and we always make the connection a student with a disability, and we put a student with a physical disability in the, so we make that relationship, but most of our population in the gen ed is a learning disability, it's a student with a learning disability, and we fail to realize that we put those students in that corner also.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. And in addition, we see that people with hidden disabilities tend to get a lot of pushback anytime they ask for or advocate for any kind of accommodation or modification, because I can't see your disability, so it must not be real.
And I thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
This is a collection of cartoons. And I put the link because they have a lot that are inspired by specific issues brought to the artist by people of varying abilities. So I thought it was a really interesting collection I hadn't seen before. But this one, I just think it's, the island in the middle of the room. It doesn't have to be, as you said, somebody that you can actually see what the disability is. And one thing we've talked about is giving sustained equitability to everyone along the continuum of human ability and experience. So your ability could be like, for instance, I wear glasses, so I am not very able to see far or well. Someone else might have a better vision. Maybe I hear better. So everybody has varying abilities. So you might have a really high ability in one thing and a lower ability in another thing. And we should celebrate all kids' abilities, regardless of where they are on a spectrum of ableness. And that helps to make everything being inclusive for all kids and making them feel as though they're seen for their strengths. Next slide, please. So when we say inclusive teaching, that is sustaining the positive aspects of their ability. And it's the second bullet of accepting varied abilities while not placing them on a hierarchy means not saying that one person's vision is more important or less important than a person's ability to hear, or a person's ability to balance, or a person's physical abilities. So being able to understand that we're all on a continuum of abilities, we all have things that we're good and not great at, allows us to view students that way as well, and not viewing one as a particularly difficult disability compared to somebody else, taking away that comparison of difficulty because everybody experiences things differently. And that is seeing the child as an individual, seeing them beyond their disability. And that is the way we can include them all in all of our work. Next slide, please. So some attributes of an inclusive classroom would be portraying science as inclusive to all ability levels. And there's posters for that. There's textbooks, making sure that when textbook adoption or any websites you use or any teacher pay teacher things are portraying all abilities. So sometimes like the token student in a wheelchair, to make it inclusive, I think people and students can see past that. So I've really seen a good uptick in being more inclusive to all kinds of abilities in commercials and things, and normalizing our differences, which is important. This is a hot link, but I also have it in the Padlet that we're going to do with small groups for the posters. The posters are Women in STEM, and your dialogue in the classroom also, instead of using students with disabilities as a token, using it just as a normal part. Like this is just, some people have different varying abilities. Einstein was, possibly was on the autism spectrum. So we all have different abilities, and that's where children can feel more inclusive. And using multiple pathways, which is one of the UDL tenets, to education, redistributes students' access to education. So they are able to access it at their own comfort level, and they're able to have it redistributed to things that they might not have been able to have. I set a timer for 15 minutes, and I think now I'm over. Next slide, please. And then these are some questions you can ask about your classroom. Are all of the adults in your room advocating for meeting the needs of the students in the class? Is the classroom focused on the abilities? And then administrators can increase the teacher confidence by allowing time for teachers to learn about any adapted technology or assistive technology used by students. And it shouldn't be only the one paraprofessional who knows how to use the cochlear implant. All the adults in the room should know how to use the cochlear implant. That way a student doesn't feel like I can only go to that person, and what if they're sick and what's going to happen? I will share that I was flustered when a student first approached me for help, but my collaborative teacher, who is deaf, was able to help the student and taught me how to do it too. So I was comfortable with it. And that was a place of growth for me. Next slide, please. And applying culturally sustaining pedagogy, which is something you may have heard about, with UDL, is a way to break down barriers and critique barriers for learning. So building awareness of one's educational and cultural positionality helps reduce those barriers. Okay, the next slide. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both. So I know that was short and sweet. But we, again, wanted to make sure that you had a little bit of information around definitions and we're all coming from the same place before we jump into trying to apply this information in ways that are meaningful to us. So right now, we're going to transition. You can go to the next slide. We're going to transition into breakouts. We'll have 30 minutes, as I mentioned before, very similar structure to yesterday, where you'll have the option to choose from one of these 3 rooms. Excuse the noise in the background, I apologize. And you'll be able to stay in that room for 15 minutes. We'll bring everyone back together, and then we'll do it again for the second room that you select to engage in. So I will be quiet because I know we are tight on time tonight, and I want to make sure that we get as much as we possibly can out of these breakout sessions. All right, so the breakouts are now available for you to join. Go ahead and jump in, and I will see you there, potentially.
I'm driving down Interstate 95. Can someone put me in breakout room number 1?
Yes.
This is Bruce Middleton, by the way.
I'm trying to figure out how to get into our breakout room, Cheryl.
You should be able to click breakout rooms at the bottom. It's like 4 tiles stacked on top of each other, and then you click join. Do you see an option to join?
I don't know.
Okay, I'll just move you. Hold on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, I see it now.
Oh, okay. All right, I'm gonna see you there.
All right, if you are not assigned a breakout room, please let me know and I'm happy to assign you. Or and let me know which one you're interested in joining. You can do that through the meeting chat or coming off mute.
Deanna, that's a great resource. Thank you for sharing it. I had to get that in there. I know you got cut off, but this is great.
Yeah, so thank you for joining us back in the main room. We are going to just go directly back into our second breakout. So go ahead and hop around.
Breakouts aren't showing up again as available yet.
Oh, they have to close, sorry, fully. They should, we'll open them in a moment and they should show up any second. Do we need to? Huh. Interesting. Are you able to join them now? Are you good to move?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we just have to click the breakout room button this time. Last time it popped up for us on the screen. That might be the difference.
It's going to, oh, hold on.
And then down in the
It might send you right back to the one you were just in. If you just
Alright.
press the breakout room.
Okay.
So I might close them and redo that so it won't do that.
Looks like a lot of
Actually,
You
I
can
think
just
we're
hit
okay.
no. You can just hit no, and then go to the little waffle at the bottom and choose your room.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jody.
Again, please let me know if you need to be assigned. Either through the chat or coming off mute.
Hey, if there's anyone still in this room, wait a minute, I see the button down. Hang on. I'm driving, so I'm having a hard time getting into a breakout room, but I got it.
No problem. I can assign you somewhere, Bruce, if you're still here. Oh, I see you made it to a room. Awesome.
I'm so sorry if some conversations got cut short. I know that was very quick. Excuse me, sorry. But I do hope that you got something out of the conversations that you were able to engage in. Heard some interesting ideas, maybe just a reminder of some things that you already are doing and can you need to continue to do. But at the end of the day, we really do hope that you enjoyed the conversations you had. And like I said, you got something out of the experiences in these breakouts, although they were really short. I won't, well, I would love to hear anything that came up that, really was new or maybe got you excited to try something in your classroom. I, as we're going through the slides, you can see all of the information that was discussed in each one of the breakouts is linked into the presentations that we've shared with you. So if you go to Dropbox, you have the opportunity to kind of go back and look through some of the things that were discussed, particularly if you weren't able to make one of the breakouts. So does anyone want to share anything that they heard, anything they loved? That was pretty quick.
Someone in our group, we had the resources posted some accessible items like easy hold universal cuffs that kind of go around things. So if you didn't get into our group or you weren't part of that, I would definitely go back and check out the Padlet. We got some good things in there, some good resources that people have added. So there's a lot of participation. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Allison. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of like our resource sharing in our group as well. Someone shared a really cool resource with us that I will make sure to link into a document and put into the Dropbox so folks who did or didn't go into the lesson walkthrough group can access it later. Jesse, see your hands up.
Yeah, one of the things, I think I was in breakout 1 and 2 over the time. And one of the things that was common across both was the need to plan explicitly for each of the engagements. So we watched a video with the students writing and talking, but that needs to be planned in. And then when we looked at the lesson plan with the crow and the walnut, there were 3 or 4 parts that could have been turn-in talks, which was discussed, or student group discussions before an answer whole group. But if those are planned in, then I, as a teacher, have ensured that each of my students has had the time to process, answer, and have an answer for a bigger group if possible. So that was a commonality across the two.
Thank you for raising that. Absolutely. UDL definitely takes some intention, right? You can't just, I mean, every now and then you just have to kind of like be in the moment and kind of see an opportunity. But a lot of times it does take a lot of planning and intentionality in order to do it well. I'm going to ensure that every student gets this on a consistent basis, gets the opportunity to participate fully, be fully engaged on a consistent basis. So thank you for lifting it up because that's absolutely true. Does anyone else have anything they want to share? I know we're at like 1 minute before we are supposed to wrap up. So I'm not going to hold you all if you don't have anything to share. But if you do have something that you really want to lift up to the group, please do. I love these opportunities to hear what's going on in other breakouts. Well, okay. I see that Alex has gone ahead and dropped the evaluation into the chat. So please make sure you fill that out for us so we can continue to improve our practice. And there's also a post-attitude survey for tonight as well. So in the follow-up email, you'll get links to both, but make sure that you complete both because they are, again, really important for us to be able to continue to improve the work that we do. We listen to your feedback, we take it very seriously, and we try to integrate it as best we can into our programming. So the more that you share, the more that we can do to enhance what we do. Katie, I'm not quite sure of a date yet. We don't have a date set yet, but more to come. as soon as we do have some dates and some information to share, we'll definitely share. But I don't have anything right now. But it's definitely something we're talking about, so more to come. All right. Well, thank you all for a wonderful evening. Before you go, just want to remind you on the next slide, there's some events coming up in the near future with Smithsonian. Before I talk about, actually, let's just go back really quickly. So there are quarterly reports that will be available to team leads and mentors starting February 6th. And you'll have the ability to submit your report all the way through March 3rd. So please get those in. If you need assistance with that, of course, reach out to me. And on the next slide are the events that are coming up. We have a National Education Summit that will be hosted July 18th through 20th. So the link that's here in the link that's in the presentation that you have access to, it will bring up all of the conversations and some of the information that was shared in 2022. The web page hasn't been updated yet, but most likely that will be the same link that will be used for the up and coming program. So I just went ahead and linked it in there, but it's also a great opportunity for you to see what happened in the past and kind of get a feel for how the Education Summit runs. So more to come on that. And then there's a culturally based practices PD in the fall that we are planning for. So once we have dates set and more information to share, we will share that with you as well. So stay tuned. But we can drop slides and that is it. We are done. We did it. 3 days. You stuck with us. Thank you so much.